great future. We're talking real money.
It's Friday. That means it's time for another Talking Real Money Friday podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm Don McDonald. Thanks for joining me as I try to answer those important financial questions that crop up in your life from time to time that you sent in or spoke in at talkingrealmoney.com. Speak them. Don't type them. Then they end up on the Friday podcast, too. Plus, good news. Something that really makes the podcast sound better. I discovered a new online service, an AI thing, that takes your questions that come in on sometimes pretty terrible internet connections. They sound good sometimes, and they sound not great to others. And there's echoes and just noises and background noises and car noises and all those kinds of things. Well, I found something that cleans all that up in a way that I've never heard before. If you listen to last Friday's podcast, you'll notice that the quality of the caller sounds better because I used it. I took the questions from last week and I ran them through the service, and then I re-edited those back into the podcast, and they sounded amazing. It sounded like people were in the studio almost. I mean, you might hear a digital artifact, but really nothing big. So that's going to be my new thing. I'm going to make you sound like you're hanging out in the studio with me by cleaning up the quality of the questions, and it should be additional incentive for you to go to talkingrealmoney.com and then record your question. It's faster than typing anyway for most of us who are bad typists, and I think that's probably most of us. So, in case you didn't hear, here is your first chance to hear the new way you guys sound.
Hi, Tom and Don. I'm 42 years old, married with 2 kids, and last year my wife became permanently disabled, and as a result is currently receiving a $10,000 a month disability benefit until the age of 67. She also has a $2 million term life policy, and we were contacted by the insurance company asking if we would like to convert this term policy into a whole life policy. I am usually against anything whole life. However, they said that because of our permanent disability, they would be covering all of the premiums for this. Our net worth currently is approximately $2.5 million, $1 million of which is in our home, and the other is in investments. We also will be receiving a pension due to my military service at the age of 60, and also have all of our girls' school paid for due to 529s and future GI Bill benefits. So I'm just wondering if it makes sense to continue with this potential conversion given our financial state and future affairs. I appreciate everything you do. Love the show, and thanks for taking my call.
Okay. Let me just start by saying I am always very, very suspicious of insurance people. And by the way, I'm sorry for your wife's disability. It sounds like you guys are doing really well financially, though. Really, really well. I'm skeptical of anything that comes out of their mouth. If it's not in writing, it's not real. So that's why you got to be a little bit careful. I know this happens because, insurance policies do have disability waivers. So when the insurer is saying you won't pay premiums because, your wife is disabled, that usually means that the first thing you have to do is convert that term policy into what are very expensive permanent policies. And is it $2 million to $2 million? I don't know. And then you have to apply generally for a disability waiver, and then you have to wait to be approved for that, and they might waive the premiums. But if they don't, now you've converted. Now you got a very expensive policy, and I mean huge, like going from $1,000 or $2,000 a year to 5 figures a year for term insurance. I mean, for whole insurance. And so read the fine print. Make sure everything's in writing. Ask them for this in writing. Is the waiver guaranteed? upon conversion, or is it subject to some sort of an approval process? You need to know these kinds of things before you do anything. And the other thing that you've got going for you is that you don't really, it doesn't sound like you really need death insurance, because both of you are likely to be in really good shape. And this is on her. So if she precedes you, it sounds like you will do fine. You've got a pension coming in. You've got a very high net worth. Your kid's college is paid for. I don't know that you necessarily need a $2 million or whatever the benefit amount is windfall. But if you can get it for free, and it's truly free, and it's guaranteed that it's free, and it happens automatically, well, okay, yeah. Good for you. Thanks for the call. And if you have a question, go to talkingrealmoney.com, or you can call us on Saturdays on our show between 3 and 5 p.m. Eastern Time at 855-935-TALK. And let's grab another one that came in and got enhanced.
Hey, guys. First of all, thanks for everything you do. Secondly, I'm calling because recently my father passed away, and in closing out some of his accounts, I wondered if it would be advisable to freeze or lock his credit. Also, how do you go about doing that?
Okay, I'll take the first question. I know this is a two-part question, so we'll start with this one. Yes, it's advisable to do that. And for this, you will need copies of his death certificate. And you want to go to all three of the credit agencies, which are, let's see if I can remember them. They're two E's, Experian and Equifax, and then TransUnion. And you want to send them a copy of the death certificate and probably some identification or something that shows you're the executor, whomever the executor is. And you want to have them, you want to give them what is called a deceased alert and ask for a credit freeze from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And then you want to ask for one final credit report to make sure there are no surprises recently lurking, or there hasn't already been some fraud, which there probably hasn't. But there may be a surprise account that you weren't aware of, and that'll be on that credit report. So then you can kind of wrap everything up, and now it's permanently flagged as a deceased account, so there'll never be any new credit pulls or new accounts issued under that social. So that's the yes. The answer to that question, as I stumble, is yes. Do that. Now to your next one.
It appears that my brother and I will both be inheriting 50% of 2 payable on death accounts and 1 IRA. Are there any pitfalls or considerations we need to make before claiming that money? Thanks for all your help. Look forward to the answer. Thanks.
Once again, the biggest requirement is a copy of the death certificate so that you can present them to the custodians of those accounts, and then the probate information and the executor's letter stating that half goes to this person's account and half goes to this person's account and half goes to this person's rollover IRA and half goes to this person's rollover IRA. And that's about it. What happens tax-wise is the taxable account, the POD accounts, any of those assets are going to be valued now at whatever the price was at the time of your father's death. And I'm very sorry for all of you. So you won't have any taxable event on those accounts. You will on the IRAs, however. You got 10 years to take all that money out and pay the taxes on every penny in those accounts. So you get to pay taxes on everything in the IRAs, basically nothing in the taxable accounts. You're just establishing a new cost basis. So it's a simple process on both counts. And generally speaking, after a death, the funeral home always gets you multiple copies of death certificates because you need them for a lot of things. Thank you for your call to talkingrealmoney.com and the fact that you spoke it. And let's grab our next one.
Okay. So what I really want to know is AVGE or AVGV? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. You had me going there for a minute. Now let's get to your real question.
The question I have is, I haven't heard much talk about adding more bonds to your portfolio closer to retirement, and then decreasing your bond allocation afterwards. So it's kind of like a trough where you add more and then you start to take them away. Because my thinking is, as your portfolio grows, the volatility that it experiences, if you only need so much of it every month, as long as you have enough to cover your expenses, later you can take more volatility and still maintain what you need to live. But early in the retirement years, you might need a little bit more stability. So just want to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a relatively recent idea that's been proposed. I think Wade Fowle was one of the people who was behind a paper that argued that because you're older, you have less time to suffer the effects of a downturn in the market. You know, it's not going to be as detrimental to your portfolio because you don't have much life left. So it's a logical argument, which is what economists do. They make logical arguments. I, on the other hand, look at the logic, but I also try to consider the emotion. And what I know with a high degree of confidence, based on scientific surveys that I've done, is that people hate volatility. They like volatility if it's up volatility. They just don't like it if it's down volatility. And I don't care how old you are, if a big portion of your portfolio, and if you're overemphasizing equities, it's going to be big. If it goes down 30, 40, 50, maybe more percent, you're going to do something stupid. You may be able to handle the decline because you don't have to use the money for as long, so you can stand it. But I don't know of very many people who can emotionally handle it. So I can't imagine a scenario in which I'd advise that, because most of us don't know ourselves that well. We really don't. And we think, oh, yeah, sure, that way I can make more money. But what if you lose more money? We forget to think about that. I mean, we've done this in event after event, including retire meets. We've asked hundreds and hundreds of people, how many of you, even young people, are going to comfortably sit still through a decline of 50% like we saw in 2008 in U.S. stocks? How many of you? Not very many hands go up. It's single digit most of the time. Tells you something. So, no, I'm not a big proponent of that. It makes sense logically, not emotionally. And now the time has come, because there weren't very many of them, for me to take the final question for the day from TalkingRealMoney.com that was spoken into our little contact form. Here it is.
Hello, I was calling to ask you a question so you have stuff for your Friday podcast. The question I have is, what if people want to retire internationally? Should they be looking at other investment accounts like a international Roth IRA, Roth 401k, if those even exist in other countries or regions? Is there any websites you would suggest looking at to research this by countries? I'm sure it varies country to country. We are specifically looking at Mexico, meaning we would spend about 6 months in Mexico and 6 months here in the U.S. So if there's anything we should be doing now to fund those accounts so we can withdraw from our Mexican 401k, that would be great. Thanks for your help as always. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the podcast. Keep teaching us.
Thanks for bailing me out. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for doing that. No, you don't have to do anything special. You can't. For example, in Mexico, you can't open the Mexican version of an IRA. It's only available to Mexican workers who pay Mexican taxes while they're working, Mexican citizens. So, no, you can't participate in that. You have the U.S. thing. But tens of thousands of Americans retire to foreign countries, hundreds of thousands, lots of people. and they live off of their U.S. accounts, portfolios, investments. You never go to visit anybody to do that. You just do it online or on the phone. And they'll send you the money and you convert it into local currencies, or, maybe you go to Ecuador and you don't have to because their currency is the U.S. dollar. But there's not anything that's a big deal when it comes to this. And the good news is, I believe with Mexico and many countries, we have a tax treaty, which means you won't get double taxed. If you get taxed in the U.S., they're not going to tax you in Mexico. And if there's some sort of a tax in Mexico, you'll get a foreign tax credit for that against your U.S. tax bill. So there shouldn't be any issues with that. Spending the money is way, way, way easy. It is so easy. As a matter of fact, many of the foreign banks that you'll see are U.S. banks or vice versa. So it's very global these days. The financial systems are interdependent and interactive. Easy breezy. I've known lots of people who've done it and done it very successfully and had no issues with their American dollar-denominated IRAs and other accounts. Just take the money out as you normally would, put it in your bank account, and spend it. Most spending is done with credit cards or even now with things like Apple Pay. So you're good. Enjoy your new life in a new place. And I hope you all enjoyed the show. Thanks so much for being a part of it. If you did enjoy it, please tell a friend or two or hundreds, if you know hundreds of people, because the more the merrier. And thanks for listening. I'm Don McDonald, and keep listening, because you know what we're going to keep doing? Well, we're going to keep talking real money.
The opinions and views expressed on this podcast were current on the date recorded. Opinions, estimates, forecasts, and statements of financial market trends that are based on current market conditions constitute our judgment and are subject to change without notice, including any forward-looking estimates or statements which are based on certain expectations and assumptions. Although information and opinions given have been obtained from or based on sources believed to be reliable, no warranty or representation is made as to their correctness, completeness, or accuracy. Information presented on the podcast is not personalized investment advice from Appella Wealth. The views and strategies described may not be suitable for everyone. This podcast does not identify all the risks, direct or indirect, or other considerations which might be material to you when entering any financial transaction. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and profitable results cannot be guaranteed. We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for informational, educational, and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. The podcast is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Appella Wealth, a fee-only registered investment advisor. Please see Appella Wealth's ADV Part 2A on our website for information regarding Appella's fees and services. Appella Capital, LLC, DBA Appella Wealth, is an investment advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. The firm only transacts business in the states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration with the SEC or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Appella does not provide tax or legal advice, and nothing either stated or implied here should be inferred as providing such advice. Thanks for listening, and please visit TalkingRealMoney.com for more information and important disclosure related to performance of any specific index or fund quoted in this podcast. And the lawyers get richer.